Now, the mastery program that we have, the first thing you're probably wondering is, what is mastery? So I'll go over that first. The mastery program is what we use as a remediation program at Yellow Breeches. And what we've decided, what was decided before I got there, is that waiting for summer school often is a problem. Because a student flunks first quarter, a student flunks second quarter, a student flunks third quarter, flunks fourth quarter. They're in summer school and there's a lot of time, it seems, to go between the end of the first marking period and summer where you can help these students. So it's a remediation program. It's eligible to students that fail a class, one or more. It meets after school, right after school for 2 hours a day for 8 days, so a total of 16 hours. The students have bus transportation provided afterwards, so we make it so that transportation isn't an issue. All students can get transported home if they need. The students get makeup work provided for the subjects they miss. So it's made just for each student. It's not a remediation program that everyone gets the same cookie cutter material. Students that complete mastery, and now there are two key parts. Here's where once in a while you get into a discussion with a parent who's not happy. There are two key parts to completing mastery. Completing the hours and completing the assignments that are required. That's where sometimes you have a discussion with a parent who's not happy because they say my student's grade hasn't been changed. And we say, yes, they did show up and they were there every day, but they didn't do their work. Until they finish all their work to show they've learned the skills, they don't get the grade changed. And what happens is the grade is changed to a 70, which is our lowest passing grade if they complete the mastery program. Students, one of the key parts also is that students are assigned a mentor. I think this is one of the most important parts of the program. The teachers who work in the program each then split the list of students, and they're a mentor. So for the next quarter, they're given the ability to log in, see their grades, meet with those students, discuss how they're doing, keep check on their grades, to try and not only focus on, you're focusing on two things at once. You're focusing on the past in fixing what they've missed, giving them the skills that they need, helping them catch up. But you're also focusing on the future by having a mentor meet with them often, check on their grades, and see why they're falling behind, what issues they're continuing to have. Now to the purposes of the mastery program. And this goes along with what is it. You assist students in catching up with the standards. We felt it's a smaller focus than summer school because it's after only one quarter instead of the entire year. So instead of trying to cover 180 days of instruction in a short period, you only cover 45 days. It's immediate remediation instead of, again, waiting until the summer. We try and start mastery within a week and a half of the end of the semester, in the end of the quarter. Now that makes it a lot of crunch time. Sometimes the secretary up front is very stressed at me because of the timeline we have scheduled, but we do all we can to get it done as quickly as possible so that the material's fresh. And the biggest thing is you provide individual students' needs. It's not like summer school. One of the other main differences is if two students fail the same class with a 65, fail math. The one student fails because they had a very hard section of the year during fractions, and they just couldn't understand fractions that quarter. The other student got fractions but couldn't understand integers, positive and negative. The work given to them by the teacher, they have for class is different. The one student would be focused on catching up on fractions, doing exercise on fractions. The other student wouldn't touch fractions as much because they understood it. They'd be focused on integers. So that's one of the biggest strengths, is focused to each student's needs. One of the reasons we felt this was important is because if a student, especially in classes like language arts and math and foreign language, those subjects build upon themselves. In social studies, you can make an argument that the first quarter we cover Canada, the students flunk Canada, the second quarter you're covering Mexico. There will be some tie-in, but really you can make an argument that as long as they focus on a second quarter, they can possibly succeed at a better rate, things like that. But when you're in math or foreign language, the things they learned first quarter are going to be used in the second quarter. If they didn't understand fractions first quarter, when they do solving equations with fractions second quarter, they're going to flunk solving equations just because they can't do the fractions throughout. So what we said is the skills that they're missing, you can't just gloss over it and wait until summer school, because that causes them to flunk all the rest of the quarters. So the basis is to catch them up on the skills they miss so that they can be successful. When we schedule, if a student flunks one class, all 16 days, all 8 days, 16 hours, they do in one class. We will schedule up to 2, where they do every other day. So they could do math, science, every other day, so each of them would be 4 days for 8 hours. The classes given priority are math, reading, and English. Reason we gave priority to those is those are the PSA tests at the end of the year, so we give those scheduling priority. Anything else that they fail gets put in if there's time after scheduling those 2 classes. And one of the other... Yes,
I'm sorry, what if they're not failing anything but like science?
Then all 8 days they would be scheduled for science. Yes, if they are only failing one course, no matter what it is, they'd get all 8 days. If they're failing 2 courses, they'd split them. If a student is failing 3 or more, they can't make them all up during the mastery time. But what we do is if they're failing math, English, and science, we would schedule them for math and English every other day for the 8 days to make sure we shore up those subject areas first. Thank you. And one of the biggest things that I see as an advantage of this program is the bottom bullet up here, that students, even if they're flunking math both the first 2 quarters, they can realize when they have no chance of passing. They can do that math in their head and realize I can't get 280 points on the year. And that's when students become true behavior issues or shut down, because there's nothing really you hold over their head. If you don't do this work, you flunk. Well, they have already realized I'm going to flunk for the year. So there's a question of motivation at that point. So that's another of the strengths. We catch up their skills, but we also keep them in a position where they can pass if they improve their student skills toward the later quarters. Yes, ma'am.
What do you do with the student that after the 8 days is still failing? Do you give them another round of 8 days, or they just, at that point?
If they still haven't made up the work, they can work with their mentor and turn it in.
Oh, it's not just that 8-day period.
No, they have the 8 days scheduled. But if they haven't gotten all their work done, especially students who have 2 subjects, so they have a lot of work to catch up on the skills they need, they can work with their mentor, turn it in, work with their mentor, and get signed off that, okay, now they've caught up with all the work, caught up with the skills, and pass. So it doesn't have, the majority, probably 90% or so of students are done after the 8 days, their grades are changed. If not, that's where the mentor becomes so important, because they stay in contact with them.
Okay, thank you.
Mastery compared to summer school, and I did cover some of this. But I think this is important to see why we made this decision. Mastery is 16 hours of work for 1 quarter. So 45 days, they spend 16 hours. If you think about summer school is 30 total hours for the whole school year. So it's not even double the amount of hours that we focus on 1 marking period for the whole school year. I think we can get much more in depth on this mastery program. Second, the material covered was taught over the last 2 or 3 months. In summer school, it was taught over the last 10 months. So when you're trying to review with a student material that they had a misunderstanding of that was 10 months earlier, that's a lot less fresh in their mind. It's a lot harder to reteach that. So the immediacy. And another difference, I think, is often summer school, they have a program that they give to every student no matter what. Ours is differentiated, where, like I said earlier, where if a student struggled with fractions, they get work on fractions. Students struggled on decimals, they get work on decimals. Summer school is, for the most part, 1 program for every kid in the room, no matter what information they didn't understand. So I think the differentiation is very important. Yes, ma'am.
Is the mentor a person in that core subject, or is it a person from any subject?
We try as much as possible to make the mentor a person who they flunked the course and were taught by that person during mastery.
Is it a paid thing after school? Or
Yeah, that's what, in the cost part, I'm going to come up to that. That's a good question. I am going to come up to the cost of the mastery program. The teachers involved in the mastery program. Oh, one other part on this slide. We hire teachers to work in the mastery program who teach their subject area and at our school. So they know the exact standards, the exact expectations. I think that's one of the biggest part. An 8th grade math teacher teaches 8th grade math. So it gives them an understanding of exactly what the students' expectations are. Teachers involved. It's a total of 11 teachers. What was done this year is we had a 6th grade math teacher, a 7th grade math teacher, and an 8th grade math teacher. So everyone who failed math had a teacher who taught their grade level, teaching them during the mastery program. There's an English teacher who does 7th and 8th grade English together. There's a reading teacher who does 7th and 8th grade reading. There's a 6th grade teacher who does reading and English in one room. There's a social studies teacher who does 7th and 8th grade social studies. We had 2 separate teachers for science, 7th and 8th grade. One 6th grade teacher who does science and social studies. And then the one where it's the most out of their area of expertise, because of the minimal number of students who normally are in like specials, related arts, there's one teacher who covers those classes. So 11 total teachers. And that will come up when we talk about the cost of the program. It is 11 teachers who are involved in teaching this program. Some data so you can see how it works at our school. The first quarter we had 68 students that participated in mastery. 37 students were there for failing 1 subject, 18 students failing 2, 13 failed 2 or more. Now again, their schedule during mastery would only cover 2 courses. 68 students, 16 hours each. You can see that that means at the end of just the first quarter, we are offering students 1,088 hours of remediation. And if you think of a 7.5-hour school day, that's over 145 school days worth of hours being taught. So you can see the amount of impact you can have on a school by doing a program like this. Some stats about the first quarter. 18 of the students increased their academic performance to a level that they didn't qualify at all for mastery in the second quarter. 13 of the students that failed 1 course didn't qualify for mastery at all. 5 of the students who failed 2 courses in the first quarter didn't qualify for mastery at all in the second quarter. So it did have an impact on some, but as you can see, that's not all the students. So some who were struggling, some who failed 3 still had 1 failure. Some who failed 1 still had 1 failure, even though they got the remediation. So I'm not saying this is a perfect program that works 100%, but it does definitely show growth. Yes?
But the learning support students, are they involved with that? Or
Yes, learning support students are involved in the program.
And learning support teachers?
Some of the learning support teachers have been. I'm not sure this year if there is a, oh yeah, Miss Elliott is there. There are learning support teachers involved in the program. Bless you.